Hello, this is Els and this is Beema's Crafty Corner, and today we are doing part 2 of our French styled vintage document holder. Okay, if you have not watched video 1, please go back and watch it because it's going to give you some important information on how to make the cover for this. And we have some kind of tricky holes and things on this one, so watching the video would be a good idea. In the first video, we cut 4 pieces. We cut 2 pieces that were 4.5 by 10. That's our front and back cover. We cut a piece that was 2.5 by 10, and we scored it at 1 inch and 1.5 inches. That's our spine. And then we cut a piece that was 1 inch by 10, and we scored it in half. And then we did some measuring on it to make a template. At the end of the first video, we set this aside and said, hold on to that for next time. So this is next time. So today, you're going to want all your standard tools. You're going to want glue. You're going to want a dauber and ink. You're going to want your scissors. You're going to want a hole punch. You're going to want some eyelets if you have them, or some of these hole reinforcers. If you don't have a hole reinforcer, but you do have a hole punch, well, get out a 1/2 inch circle, because you can pop a circle and then you can put holes in the middle of it and make yourself some reinforcers. Or you could check your dies. A lot of tag dies have reinforcer pieces in them. You just have to cut them, okay? You're going to want some kind of paper or something to cover this with. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be scrapbook paper. It could be a digital. This is a digital. This is from Romantica Arts, and I will link this in the description below. And this is it's designed for tall, skinny journals, and it's perfect for this. So that's why I printed it. You're also going to want 5 to 6 envelopes, okay? And we want to make sure that our envelopes are all opening on the same side. So just check to make sure that your envelopes are all facing the same direction, okay? And we're going to cut our digitals out, and we're going to ink everything. So we're going to start with inking our envelope. And I'm going to ink my envelope front and back all the way around. I'm not rounding any corners or anything on this. I'm not doing anything other than inking at this point. Okay, we're going to be putting some holes in here, but we're going to be doing that later. So we're going to ink everything. I'm going to get a new dauber because this one doesn't like me very much. So let me grab a new head for that. There we go. Oh, much better. Okay. All right. So once I have it on the front, I'm going to do the back as well. I'm not really worried about that at this point because that's going to get covered. All right, so once I have that, I'm also going to take my pieces that I cut, and the reason I picked this particular paper pattern is because I could do some really cool fussy cutting on the ends. See that? Let me see if I can ink this and you can see it a little better. Okay, see that? It's just really cool. So I literally fussy cut these pieces out. So I'm going to ink all of these. So you go ink your envelopes. Cut out your paper that you're going to be using. If you're cutting paper, you want to go 1/4 of an inch shorter and 1/4 of an inch narrower. So 4 inches by 9 1/4. Okay? Don't worry. As always, all measurements are going to be in the description below. Okay? I'm not totally sure, but there should be a class sheet on this, and if there is, it'll be linked, okay? I'm going to go ink everything, and then when I come back, we're going to start kind of assembling. I'll be right back. Take your time. All right, so now traditionally we would leave the envelopes open so you could put stuff into them, but there's not a lot of fun in that. So you have a couple of options. You can leave it open, or you can close the envelope and cut it open on the side right here so that it just becomes a pocket that you tuck things into. You can make it a tall, thin pocket. So there's a couple of different options. For me, I am going to close mine. Half of them anyway. So I'm just going to put some glue, if my glue wants to work. You never know. It could be the day of the week that it doesn't like me. And I'm going to make sure that I put it right on the edge because I don't want to accidentally seal anything up. So just be mindful of that when you're putting on your glue, where your glue is going to fall. Okay? Now, since nobody's going to see it, if you're afraid to glue it and have it close, what you can do is draw some lines. And then just put your glue here. Because you're going to cover that, so nobody's going to see it. So I'm going to do 3 of mine that way, covering it with glue. Making sure that I get the edges. I'm not overly worried about it because I am going to be putting paper on this to close, you know, so. All right, so that's 3 of them. And I'm going to make sure that I have the right sides. And I'm going to cut these open. So just a scant amount, just enough to cut them open. And I am going to try and keep that, you know, somewhat uniform. Okay. So now I have my 3 envelopes, and they're pockets that are open. And then I'm going to start decorating. So let me get all my envelopes going in the same direction, with my openings all to the right, re-inking if I have to along here. And I'm going to start to apply my pieces. Now, you can glue these, you can tape, whatever it is you want to do. I do not recommend that you use stick glue, because stick glue has a shelf life, and after about 5 or 6 months it's going to start to fall apart on you, and nobody likes that, you know. Now if you're just making this for you and you don't think you're going to use it that long, then by all means go ahead and stick glue away. Alright, so I have glue on here, and I'm going to put this on my envelope. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but I'm going to get that on there. And then I am going to be putting one on the other side, because this is a sealed envelope with an outside pocket. Okay? So let me finish this one real quick, and then we'll do the other kind. We'll do one of the other kind too, if my glue wants to work. It's like glue is flowing through it. Why does it get jammed up? I don't know. I do not have the answer for that. All right. So, there's my opening. Both sides of my envelope are covered. Now, we're going to take a look at the other one, this one. So we're going to cover the front just like we did on the first one. Okay. It gets like a little dry piece or something caught in there. There we go. Okay. So we're going to cover this one. And I don't want these to be perfect. On the other side, we're going to cover this part, and then we're going to cover the flap with something else. So if you want to cut extras, or you just want to use a different kind of paper, or maybe you just want to use ephemera on the flap, that's your choice. Okay? If you want to cover just the flap, and then have the rest of this covered with something else, that's your choice as well. And I think that's what I'm going to do here. I think that I'm going to cover the flap on mine. So I'm just going to take my piece, put it on here about where I want it, and I'm going to just tear it with a ruler and then re-ink. I'll save that. Re-ink this. Maybe give it a little zhuzh with the scissors. Did anybody see what I did with my scissors? Haha. Alright, so I'm just gonna because I want to give it the same kind of edge, you know, that it has elsewhere. Bit of ink on there, and then I'm going to glue this onto the flap. All right, so you can either put the piece on the big part of the envelope, or you could put it on the flap of the envelope. And, you know, that's also going to depend on what kind of envelope you are using. Because if you are using an envelope that has a point on it, then your application is going to be slightly different. Okay? So now I have that like that, and I'll probably just use some ephemera over here. I might use a little bit of this. Hard to say. But that's what I'm going to be doing next, is I'm going to be covering all of my envelopes. And once I have all of my envelopes covered, I'm going to come back and we're going to move on to the next part, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, so now all of my envelopes have been covered on both sides. I could put finger pulls, notches in these if I want to, or just leave them the way that they are. That is entirely up to you. On these, what I did was I covered the front, and then I covered the flap, tore off half the page. I put that other piece on the inside, and then I just printed up, you know, a piece of this, which is like a ledger paper, and put this here for writing. That's pretty much all I did with that, okay? All right. Now, making sure that all of our envelopes are going in the same direction. We are going to bring back in our template and our cover, because we want to make sure, because this is, you know, it could be off by a millimeter or so. We want to make sure that we have it exactly right for our front cover. So our front cover has 2 holes. So we're going to line this up on our spine, making sure that our 2 holes are in the right place. Okay? So I'm making sure that my holes are in the right places. Then I know which side I want to use. And I'm just going to mark it with a little X that tells me that's the side I'm going to use. Okay? Then I'm going to use those lines that I put on and put those lines top and bottom of the envelope. And you can do these 2 at a time. And I'm just making sure that these are where I want them. And then I'm going to punch holes in my covers here. So let me get my hole punch. There we go. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for the envelope to be in the hole. And then I'm going to punch. Now this is not an exact science, so don't be upset if it's not 100% perfect, okay? But we're going to go ahead and do those. And I'll tell you why, because you're going to get it fixed later anyway. I'm going to do these ones, exactly the same thing. I'm going to make sure that they are even across. Line up that line, and then I'm going to punch my holes. Whew, that was pretty good. Okay, so once I have that, now you're either going to put eyelets in these or your reinforcers. Okay, so I'm going to grab a bunch. And if you have 5 envelopes, it's going to take 20 reinforcers. $15, $16, $17, $18, $19, and $20. By the way, if you don't have a way of making these and you want them, I do sell them in a container in the shop. I don't off the top of my head know the price, but they're not expensive. Or you could just ask for them, you know, in one of my sales. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take these and I'm going to reinforce all of the holes. So I'm just going to put a little bit of adhesive on here and put it on. Now if you're using eyelets, just add your eyelets. But I'm going to do these top and bottom, front and back on all the envelopes, okay? So go do your eyelets or your reinforcers or whatever it is you're doing, and then come back to the video and we will move on from there. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have all of my reinforcers on, front and back of every page, and this is like ready to, you know, move on to the next step. So let me tell you what the next step is. So the next step is actually I have these in the weirdest order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. right, so the next step is to actually put them into the binding. So we're going to be doing that in the next video. All right, so that's it for today. If you have not watched part 1, go back and watch part 1 to make your cover, and then go ahead and start on part 2. And when we come back together in the next one, we're going to do the binding system, okay? So carefully put all of this away for now, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, stay well. Bye-bye.